mouth of the harbor in Charleston, South Carolina, sits a fort. Covering just less than 2.5 acres, it is not a very large fort, but the role it would play in the watershed moment of American history was huge, and it would be an eyewitness to incredible events taking place around it. It was here in Charleston that secession began. Finding the election of President Abraham Lincoln intolerable, South Carolina declared the Union dissolved. The new Republic of South Carolina lasted almost 2 months before it joined the even newer Confederate States of America. It was here that U.S. Army Major Robert Anderson moved his small garrison of approximately 80 federal soldiers across a mile of water in the middle of the night. They left an indefensible Fort Moultrie for an as-yet incomplete Fort Sumter. His men immediately began making the fort ready for combat, just in case this new Cold War suddenly turned hot. It was here that the giant American flag flying over Fort Sumter was rent asunder by strong winds on April 11th. The very next day, the nation would be rent asunder by war. It was here that the war began. At 4:30 in the morning of April 12, 1861, a mortar shell fired by Confederates at nearby Fort Johnson exploded over Fort Sumter. It was a signal shot to the other Confederate batteries on the surrounding islands to open fire. After standing at the precipice for 4 months, America plunged into the abyss of civil war. It was here that the Confederates, after agreeing to terms of evacuation with Major Anderson, took control of Fort Sumter. They would hold it for almost the entirety of the war. It was here that Fort Sumter witnessed the Union Navy establish a blockade outside of the harbor. Inside of 1 year, it experienced an attack by Union ironclads, an assault by Marines and sailors, and had its once formidable walls reduced to rubble. It would also witness the first successful submarine attack in history. Meanwhile, a mile and a half away on Morris Island, the 54th Massachusetts Infantry Regiment, comprised of black soldiers led by white officers, would prove what everyone should have already known, that the black man could fight and die as well as any other man. It was here that the Confederates, having had their lines of communication and supply cut off by General William Tecumseh Sherman, abandoned Fort Sumter and Charleston on February 17, 1865. Less than 2 months later, General Robert E. Lee surrendered to General Ulysses S. Grant at an obscure little village in Southside Virginia called Appomattox Courthouse. The war was effectively over. The war would change everything. The American concept of nationhood would change, and with abolition, American society would change. The American flag assumed new meanings, and the newly freed slaves would be made citizens of the nation which had for so long held them in such oppression, and the long march to true equality would begin. The trajectory and history of the nation would change, and along with it, that of the world's. So come and make your pilgrimage to this most remarkable and hallowed site, and journey back in time to when all these events still lay in the future. This is where it all begins. This is where everything changes. This is Fort Sumter.